Hello and welcome to IAMC Radio and Podcast.
Great to be here.
Today we're going to explore the top news headlines for April 12th.
Yes, quite a lot going on.
We've got a lot happening both here in Nigeria and around the globe, so let's get straight to what you need to know.
Absolutely. It's one of those days where multiple significant stories are breaking, each with its own important context.
Okay, let's start with a really disturbing situation out of Côte d'Ivoire.
Ah, yes, the trafficking story.
Air Peace has pledged to bring back a large number of underage Nigerian girls who have been trafficked there. The chairman of Air Peace, Dr. Onyema, didn't mince words, calling the whole thing, well, inhumane.
What really struck me about that story was the sheer number of girls involved.
Exactly.
Social media influencer Very Dark Man claims there could be as many as 1,200. I mean, that figure alone paints a horrifying picture of the scale.
1,200. That's just unbelievable. And Air Peace's offer is quite something, too.
Oh, absolutely. Not just the flights, but also free medical care upon their return at Dutchess Hospital. That shows real commitment.
It's more than just getting them home, isn't it? There's this call for the Nigerian embassy in Côte d'Ivoire to, get these girls together.
Right, to coordinate things.
And for the federal government to then take responsibility for their education and, crucially, getting them back to their families.
That's the long-term part. It highlights that this isn't just a logistical problem. It's about these girls' futures, their well-being.
It really is. This whole situation is just ungodly, as Dr. Onyema said.
It makes you wonder about the systems, the protections that should be in place to stop this kind of thing.
Definitely something he's looking at there. Okay, moving to a completely different but equally serious issue here in Nigeria.
The situation in Borno State.
Yes, Senator Ali Ndume has made some pretty stark revelations.
Stark is the word. He says Boko Haram is effectively in control of at least 3 communities now.
Gudabali, Marte, and Ebadam, was it?
That's right. According to Senator Ndume, there are no civil authorities present. None. Boko Haram is the authority there.
Wow. That just, It reinforces what Governor Zulum has been saying, doesn't it? About renewed attacks and insecurity.
Sadly, yes. It confirms those ongoing concerns about the resurgence, the widespread insecurity in the region.
And the numbers Senator Ndume shared, really sobering.
They are over 250 attacks since last November.
Yeah, and the loss of life. Over 100 soldiers, nearly 300 civilians.
It's staggering, and even though they report killing around 800 terrorists in that same period,
the level of violence remains incredibly high.
Yeah.
It makes you question the effectiveness of, current strategies.
And that's precisely what Senator Ndume is questioning. He openly criticized the preparedness of security forces.
Said something about inadequate equipment and poor strategy.
Exactly, where it really makes you think about what's truly needed to, turn the tide against this longstanding insurgency.
His call for President Donald Trump to declare a state of emergency, on security, welfare, the economy, that's a pretty strong statement.
It certainly is. It really underscores the level of concern at the highest levels about the whole situation.
Suggests a need for maybe a fundamental rethink.
I think so, yes. A reevaluation of how these interconnected crises are being handled.
Okay, let's turn our attention now to a significant legal development.
ECOWAS court ruling.
That's the one. The ECOWAS Court of Justice has ruled that Nigeria's blasphemy laws actually violate the fundamental right to freedom of expression.
This is a really important ruling, potentially with quite wide-ranging implications for Nigeria.
It seems quite specific, too.
Yes, the court specifically called out Section 210 of the Kano State Penal Code and Section 382B of its Sharia Penal Code law. Said they're incompatible with Nigeria's human rights obligations.
That's Section 382B. That's the one that carries the death penalty for insulting Prophet Muhammad, right?
Correct. The ECOWAS court explicitly deemed that punishment excessive and disproportionate.
So what happens now?
Well, the court has ordered Nigeria to either repeal or amend these kinds of laws to align with the African Charter, Article 9.2 specifically.
Really brings up that clash between different legal systems and values.
It does. Looking at the bigger picture, this ruling puts a spotlight on that delicate balance between respecting religious beliefs and, upholding fundamental human rights like freedom of expression.
The court also mentioned the human cost, didn't they? Referencing conventions and Nigeria's own constitution.
Yes, and it's important to remember these aren't just abstract legal points. These laws are in force in at least a dozen northern states?
And we've seen tragic cases.
Exactly. The names Deborah Samuel and Yahya Sharif Aminu immediately come to mind. Their cases tragically illustrate the real-world consequences.
So the ECOWAS court's intervention highlights a kind of international concern.
I think that's fair to say. They did acknowledge the state's interest in public order and respecting beliefs.
But they found the Kino laws failed the tests: legality, necessity, proportionality.
Precisely. They just didn't meet those thresholds. This ruling forces a critical look at where the line should be drawn.
It'll be, well, fascinating and probably challenging to see how Nigeria responds.
Absolutely.
Okay, shifting gears now to international politics. Gabon. They just held their first presidential election since the coup last year.
Right. And what's interesting, or perhaps unusual, is that the man who led that coup, Brice Oligui Nguema,
He's expected to win.
widely expected, yes, to become the first elected leader since the end of the, 55 years of Bongo family rule. It's a peculiar kind of transition.
He took over as transitional president after the coup, oversaw the new constitution process.
So this election is being framed as a step back towards constitutional order.
But what's the backdrop?
Well, that's crucial. Gabon is facing significant economic and social challenges. High unemployment, power shortages, water shortages, lack of infrastructure, heavy government debt.
So real issues on the ground.
Very real. Oligui was running against 7 rivals, including a former prime minister under Ali Bongo.
So there are criticisms about whether things will really change.
Definitely. Critics accuse him of failing to move on from the years of, plunder under the Bongos whom he served. There's skepticism about real change.
Given his history within that previous regime.
Exactly. Is it a real break or just a reshuffling? That's the question. Oligui himself is predicting a historic victory, though.
We'll have to see what that means for Gabon's future direction then.
Absolutely. The outcome will be a key indicator.
Now let's look at a global issue with potentially significant ripple effects. Funding for international health.
The WHO report. Yes, this is deeply concerning.
They're saying a large majority, 70% of their country offices, are seeing major impacts from recent donor funding cuts. Official Development Assistance, ODA, for health.
And these cuts are hitting all essential functions. Health emergency preparedness and response are apparently the most affected. That's 70% of countries reporting issues there.
That has implications for everyone, everywhere, doesn't it?
It certainly does. But it's not just emergencies. Public health surveillance, basic service provision, humanitarian aid, even the health workforce, all seriously impacted.
And the WHO pointed out that in some places, this forces people to pay more out of pocket for healthcare.
Yes, which of course disproportionately hits the poorest and most vulnerable. It's a stark reminder of how reliant many health systems are on international aid.
They even compared the disruption to the peak of the COVID-19 pandemic in some areas. That's severe.
It really underscores the severity. We're talking potential reversal of years of public health progress.
And it goes deeper. Job losses for health workers, disruptions to training.
Yeah.
It has long-term effects.
Absolutely. Impacts the capacity for the future. And information systems, surveillance, emergency systems also significantly hit.
The report mentioned President Donald Trump's earlier decisions, withdrawing the U.S. from WHO, pausing foreign aid.
Yes, that provides important context for some of these current funding challenges and how they affect programs, including right here in Nigeria.
The WHO Director General is calling for an accelerated transition to sustainable domestic funding.
Which is the ideal long-term goal, yes.
Yeah.
But the immediate impact of these cuts is clearly causing a lot of disruption and hardship right now.
Highlights the interconnectedness of global health security, really.
Precisely. Weakness in one area affects us all eventually.
Okay, back home in Nigeria. A significant development in the case of suspended DCP Abba Kyari.
Yes, the federal high court in Abuja.
They've ordered him and 4 colleagues to begin their defense in the alleged cocaine trafficking conspiracy trial.
This is a crucial stage in a very high-profile case. Justice Emeka White dismissed their no-case submissions.
Which means the court believes the NDLEA established a prima facie case. Enough evidence to proceed.
Essentially, yes. So Kyari and the 4 IRT officers are facing that 5-count charge conspiracy, dealing in tampering with cocaine.
And we should remember, 2 other defendants already pleaded guilty and were convicted.
Right. And the judge made an interesting legal point, too.
About the quantity of cocaine.
Yeah, basically saying the actual amount is immaterial to establishing a violation under the law in this kind of conspiracy charge. The focus is on the alleged actions and agreement.
So the case is adjourned until May 21st, 2025, for the defense to begin. Definitely one to watch.
Absolutely. Big implications for law enforcement integrity and the fight against drug trafficking.
Turning now to some sad news from the U.S. Another plane crash.
Yes, near Boca Raton in South Florida. Very tragic.
3 people killed, 1 injured.
It involved a Cessna 310, apparently crashed shortly after takeoff from Boca Raton Airport, heading for Tallahassee.
Reports mentioned a fireball, and it even pushed a car onto nearby train tracks.
Yes, leading to closures there. The FAA and NTSB are investigating the cause now, of course.
This comes right after that helicopter crash in New York City the day before.
It does. A sad reminder of the risks in aviation and the importance of safety investigations.
Okay, finally, a couple of important updates for people here. First, changes to U.S. visa interview requirements for Nigerians.
Ah, yes. Effective April 22nd. Seems quite specific.
It does. All applicants in Abuja and Lagos must present a DS-160 form with a confirmation barcode starting AA, followed by 2 zeros.
And crucially, that barcode has to exactly match the one used when they schedule the interview online.
They're being very strict. Failure to present matching info means denial of entry, no interview.
So applicants really need to double-check that barcode well in advance, at least 2 weeks before, they advise.
And you can't reuse an old DS-160.
Right. If it's wrong, they need to log into their account at least 10 days before the interview to request a correction. Seems like an effort to streamline things, perhaps.
Could be. Also reminds applicants to make sure their appointment is scheduled at the location shown on their DS-160 form. Important details for visa applicants.
Very important practical information there.
And lastly, more attacks on oil pipelines, this time confirmed by Owando PL in Bayelsa State.
Unfortunately, yes, a persistent problem. Owando confirmed a series of sabotage attacks.
3 separate incidents in the past week, targeting both crude oil and gas pipelines.
That's right, the 18-inch Tebedaba Brass crude line and the 24-inch Ogboinbirio BOB gas line.
They've launched an emergency response, working with government agencies for investigation.
But it underscores the ongoing challenge: pipeline vandalism, crude theft. It continues to plague the sector and cost Nigeria significantly in lost production.
A complex issue with deep roots, as you say.
Indeed.
So there you have it, a concise look at some of the most significant news headlines for today, April 12th. From global health funding to local security and legal matters here in Nigeria.
Yeah.
Clearly a lot happening.
Indeed. Each story, while distinct, offers a glimpse into some of the major issues shaping our world right now. Staying informed is, well, essential.
Thank you for listening to the Today's Top News Headlines on IAMC Radio and Podcast.